Hello everyone, it's so good to see you. Nintendo Switch 2 has been out for a little while now, and many of us are enjoying so many titles having performance enhancements, dedicated Switch 2 editions, all sorts of fun things. Amongst these titles people were clamoring for enhancements of are indeed the Pokemon games. Now listen, I've been a fan of Pokemon since playing countless hours of Yellow and Gold on my Game Boy Color. I have played essentially every generation and third or extra release except for like Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. I was so excited to know that the series was finally coming to consoles with the Switch generation. Many of them were not what we were expecting for various reasons. Performance, visuals, and how Game Freak can improve on them have been a very spicy topic ever since the main series hit home consoles with this generation. This has been more hotly discussed ever since we began speculating what the Switch 2 is. And as you might be aware, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet had, by far, the biggest public outcry for enhancements. I'm not particularly the biggest fan of reviews, whether it's reading them, watching them, or making them. I tend to think my strengths are more towards talking about a game that's been out for a good long while. But that's the thing, Scarlet and Violet have been out for almost a few years now. We've had more than enough time to play it and witness the good and the bad. We were audibly excited when we first heard that this pair of games were going to receive enhancements on the Switch 2. Most of this game's reputation ever since launch were the countless visual glitches, from minor inconsistencies to absurd abnormalities. I've had my own clip make the rounds a while back. It was of this poor girl who died in front of my eyes. I did my best to ignore the public opinion and just enjoy it for what it was, but the game itself kept reminding me of all the problems that it had. It was trying to be a mix of both what Sword and Shield brought from classic Pokemon titles, as well as blend the open world aspects from Legends Arceus. But the scope might have been too big to handle. The game is littered with visual and technical glitches. Even when just recording some footage on the original Switch version, I found things that just don't make any sense. It's frustrating because when I first played this game, there are a lot of good merits to it. Being able to freely explore the world of Pokemon like this is the dream. It's something I wish I could have done as early as my first Pokemon games on the Game Boy. We can go where we want, see Pokemon just hanging out everywhere. We can experience a story of thought-out characters, relatable plots, and some who we genuinely cared about by the time we got to the finale. I tell people it is worth reaching the end to experience just how surreal it is because it almost feels like an entirely different game. But the caveat to everyone that I tell this to is that it all just performs so poorly on Switch 1. I would probably give the original about a 7 or so, because while exploration does feel good, especially when you have all means of transportation, the game constantly takes me out of it for one immersion-breaking reason or another. The fact that this game is held together by glue and strings, runs the way it does, and still got greenlit to release as a complete and functional game is forever going to be a mystery to me. However, things are different now. How does the Switch 2 performance boost help Pokemon Scarlet and Violet? Is it worth going back to? And if you never played it before, should you still bother? Honestly, it's a strange inquiry to navigate. If you've been watching the screen, you'll see that immediately this game runs remarkably smoothly. It's unreal to see a mainline Pokemon game running at 60 FPS after all these years. Would you like to guess which was the last game in the series to run at 60 frames per second? The last mainline title to run at 60 before the release of the Switch 2 was Pokemon Emerald on the Game Boy Advance. Frame rate has never truly been a major concern for Game Freak. That became more apparent with this game than ever. I want you to observe this infamous windmill. It runs fairly well here, right? As I move away from this windmill, we can still see it in the distance, but the further we part from it, you'll notice how the frames of anything with movement are sacrificed. The windmill on Switch 1 slowly turns into a ticking hand of a clock. And if we go as far away as we can, it's essentially less than 1 frame per second. Yet on Switch 2, it's pretty dang smooth. There are locations that have received such a boost that it might be considered a bit overwhelming. Lake Castleroya was known for some of the most egregious frame drops in the entire game. But as you can see, not only is this game running at a near constant 60 frames per second, the Switch 2 allows for even more Pokemon to appear on screen. That's a lot of water Pokemon. It made navigating some of the lake kind of impractical. I couldn't stop running into some unless I jumped right over them and... Wait, is that a shiny Meryl? Wait, no, I don't want to fight you! Meryl! Meryl, where are you going? Stop! Come back! Meryl! No! You know what? Forget everything that I said. Shiny Hunters, the Switch 2 might be the power play here. Increased processing power means increased spawn count, find an outbreak, and profit. You can capture a comical overabundance of Pokemon in one shot because of the Switch 2. Honestly, I dislike the way breeding works in Scarlet and Violet. I'm more old-fashioned. This was a wild experiment to conduct. I think I spent a total of just 10 minutes before this guy showed up. There are going to be people that buy a Switch 2 just for the increased odds of shiny hunting. I fear those people, but I also respect the hustle. Something I also did a fair amount of was Pokemon battles. No matter what effects we filled the screen with, Switch 2 manages to keep a stable 60 frames per second. This became very hard to line up with each other because when Switch 2 footage fell behind, often the little moments between scenes and actions where it loads would help to catch it back up. Once you spend a lot of time with this game on Switch 2, you do realize that, oh, it really is just a performance and graphical boost, isn't it? If frame rates are something that you're especially sensitive to, this will definitely be easy on the eyes from here on. Even the most chaotic battles, terror raids, hardly have any dips. Effects are everywhere, the entire room is shining. I intentionally used Rain Dance to see if it would cause any dips too. And it feels weird to say that it runs this well. Look at the rain when comparing the two. It is such a crazy difference, and Switch 2 isn't slowing down for anything. Oh right, this game also has multiplayer, and one that's so different from simply connecting and battling. You can meet up in a union circle with up to 3 other people and go wandering the world together. I met up with a friend of mine in the area within the Indigo Disc DLC to see if there were any kind of performance drops. To my surprise, there wasn't much at all really. We did some missions together, fought and caught some Pokemon. We did notice some funny business when we had our Pokemon trailing us, but this was unique to our partners and not happening to us directly. We did a terror raid and also a one-on-one battle to see if she and I could force any issues. For the most part, we were just in awe of how smooth the game looks and didn't notice any distracting drops. The frame rate being at a near perfect 60 through our whole online session was so prominent that this almost didn't feel like a Pokemon title. This has transformed the game. This is one of the most substantial differences that any Nintendo game has made from the jump to Switch 2. And you know, I don't feel like that's impressive to say at all, because the bar was so low. There was, of course, a lot of room for improvements, but that's because the game was so broken and unfinished in the first place. All it could do was improve itself from here. We all know that the only reason this game was allowed to be released in this state is simply because it's the Pokemon brand. The IP is amongst the most popular in the world. People are going to play this game no matter what. Everyone that says they're going to boycott this or the next Pokemon title, it doesn't matter because it's far too powerful. We Pokemon fans have proven, with the numbers, that no matter how spotty a new generation's game looks prior to launch, we will still buy and continue to keep buying it. This entire version might have gotten cleaned up, but it doesn't magically resolve the other issues it has under the hood. The frame rate and loading speeds may have been improved, but the game still functions with a lot of internal problems. We're still looking at some of the worst pop-in I have ever witnessed. These kids sitting at the desks? I don't even know how it's possible that they can blip in and out of existence like this. How badly do you mess up optimization that this happens like this? It is such an awkward situation because I genuinely do like Scarlet and Violet. There are absolutely moments where you can tell a team that is passionate about Pokemon is working to bring what they can to us. It's just that, more often than not, lately that vision is smeared with all the problems it has, sometimes down to unfair nitpicks by the community. Some of them I understand. When you purchase a product or spend money on a brand, you often have an expectation of what that brand is going to deliver, right? A Mario game, a trip to Disneyland, you feel as though, given how huge an IP is, that you're going to get your money's worth. That's why we open our wallets to these. Mainline Pokemon titles, however, haven't really met that in a long time now, but we still invest our time and money to be entertained by the brand. How does it get to this point? There's so many factors in a huge company like this that can contribute to a product that feels unfinished. There's the tight timelines to finish a game and maintain market presence with other Pokemon brand pillars, adapting a huge open world region, the prospect of fixing issues with things like patches, I would say hardware limitations, but then you got games like Xenoblade, and that's a whole other conversation. The thing is, we can't always rely on an entire new console to alleviate problems and make a game more playable. That is definitely not a sustainable business practice. Nearly 3 years later, and I feel like I'm finally playing something that feels closer to the intended state it was meant to release as. There were also 2 waves of DLC that released that myself and many others got because we just love Pokemon. I am a big fan and I likely always will be. The brand is something that's ingrained in my soul, as it is for many people my age. You might watch the anime series or movies, play mainline and spin-off titles, or perhaps just indulge in the trading card game. My sisters have been getting more into it. They've asked me to get Pokemon from the Nintendo World Store lately. It's a series that I want to see do well, perhaps because I grew up with it, and it's still a pillar of entertainment with worldwide appeal. I might be rambling off topic a bit, but playing this version really brought a lot of thoughts and feelings back to me. If you stopped playing Scarlet or Violet and refused to go back until it performed like a functioning game, then this is your answer. You have to get a Switch 2 for it, but hopefully it's not solely for the reason of playing Pokemon. If you never jumped into this generation, you might be wondering, should I do it now? Well, compared to any other point in time you could have asked me, I say yes. There is a lot of world to explore, interesting characters to meet, and of course a lot of cool new Pokemon. That's still not without its downsides. As a game, it's not balanced very well. Gyms and locations do not scale to your Pokemon's levels, so the prospect of being able to go wherever you want is somewhat of an illusion at first. You eventually do get funneled into certain areas first. You'll very easily find yourself in a place where you're underleveled or overpowered. And yet, establishing that connection with your Pokemon, from new variants to old favorites, is always rewarding. Making a bond with your mount that carries you all over the region to collect badges works well with the context of this game. That formula, now split into 3 separate storylines in one adventure, still holds up, even if it has somewhat exhausted itself by now. These days, it's the Legends games that have me the most intrigued by new directions that the series can take. I'm not the most thrilled about giving this game a number, considering that there are so many factors that are important to some people over others. Many have deeply rooted their opinions of this game already. A review and some visuals might not change that so easily. I took extra time to make sure that I knew how I felt about this going into it. This, in particular, is extremely subjective and depends on who you ask. But overall, taking everything into account now that the game has been released with these improvements, I would give Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, specifically on the Switch 2, an 8 out of 10. Within its own bubble of Pokemon games, it makes great strides and achieves a feeling of exploration like no other Pokemon game has done before. It runs uncannily smoothly. I feel like my eyes are still adjusting to it. But many problems, from balancing to aspects built within the framework, cannot be magically resolved with a performance boost. At this point, every Pokemon announcement and release will be heavily scrutinized by the players, whether it's something technical, visual, or the cursed national dex. This is a series that was likely meant to always be on a handheld, with experimental games that have a controlled scope of battle on console, like the Stadium games or Pokemon Coliseum. Nintendo threw Game Freak for a loop, saying the Switch is both a console and handheld. And I feel like, to some extent, we are always going to see the effects of needing to develop for more powerful hardware. Listen, Game Freak, I'm going to be real here. When it comes time to make Pokemon Black and White remakes, just go back to sprite art. Just pivot if you need to, and make something that looks and sounds completely different. Oh, who am I kidding? No matter what Gen 5 remakes look like on Switch 2, we're never going to be happy. Thanks so much for watching this review, revision, ramble? I'm not 100% sure. But what I do know is that you must have opinions on this as well. Have you tried out Pokemon Scarlet and Violet on Switch 2? Will you give it a try for the first time? Let me know down below, and if you feel like it, consider subscribing to GVG, supporting us on Patreon, and throwing your best Pokemon at me. I will fight your ace with my bare hands and my opinions. Alright everyone, take care of yourselves. Till we meet again.